Nobody else could do that. All the other singers pick their songs and rehearse them and then go record them. But he would listen to it and immediately record it. So Elvis was a very smart, talented guy, more than people give him credit for.
One of the things Elvis never did when we were on tour in different cities all the time and different buildings, he never went in and did sound checks. That was all set up by the people that he had handling his sound, which one of them was Felton Jarvis and the guy from Australia. Bruce Jackson, yeah. And Bill Porter handled the sound in the arena. Bruce Jackson and Felton Jarvis did the sound that actually was used on the stage. And that was one of the hottest stages that was around. I mean, nobody ever had that much going. Everything was mic'd on the stage. And they did that. And one of the things, if Elvis did not like feedback, if feedback came in there, he would stop and say, let's get it right, guys. Very seldom was there feedback, let me tell you.
Yeah, that's true. When we first started doing the Elvis shows, we would stack the columns on the side of the stage. And we tried to explain to the Colonel that that's costing money. He didn't get it for a while. And then all of a sudden, Tom Hewlett said, add up all those seats that they can't sell and tell me how much it is. So then we figured out how much it was, went to the Colonel and said, Colonel, if we hang the sound from the rafters like everybody else does, we can sell another $10,000 worth of seats. Well, no problem, go right ahead and do that. But until there was a number of money put on it, wasn't interested in it. But that immediately, then we started hanging the sound, and we had a 360 ability to sell tickets and everybody could see Elvis.
Charles, was it true that a lighting truss fell down once?
Not that I know of, no.
Well, I'm not going to sue you.
No, I mean, I never did.
Careful, Charles. We may have to move further away here to see what's coming out.
Threatening lawsuits?
Yep, you heard that?
Okay, you're done.
Gone. But that was serious. Elvis was really concerned about the sound. Saginaw, Michigan. We played up there, did one show, the sound was terrible. All the way back to the hotel, Elvis says, Dick, how can we return everybody's money? I said, you can. It was, it'd be all kind of counterfeit tickets show up and everything. He said the sound was terrible. Yes, it was. Wasn't good. Well, he got back in the hotel. He got a hold of the Colonel, who was in the next city, and said, Colonel, I want new sound equipment tomorrow. Well, Elvis never did anything today. Trust me, or 3 days down. It was always today, is what I meant to say. So the fact that he said tomorrow gave the Colonel a little, but the Colonel got new sound equipment. We went back and played Saginaw, Michigan again about 3 days later. And trust me, that was the best sound you ever wanted to hear in that place. Yes.
Who else jumped the wall at Graceland trying to see Elvis? Anybody else other than Jerry Lee Lewis coming up that time drunk?
Well, Jerry Lee didn't go through the wall. He tried to go through the gate with his car. And he got stopped. He came there one night. He wanted to see Elvis, and he'd been drinking, obviously. So Harold Lloyd said, well, Elvis isn't enough. He's sleeping. So Jerry Lee left. But 2 hours later, he's back. He'd been drinking more. Tennessee and Memphis at that time had kind of, you couldn't go into, they didn't have bars where you could go in and just buy a drink. you went in with your own bottle that you bought at the state liquor store, and they held it for you, and then they would sell you your own bottle back, you know. And Jerry Lee knew where several of these little places that were illegal that did that was. So he'd go there, and he came back. Now he's really swacked. And he wants to go in, and he bangs, driving his own car, hit the gate, bent the gate, couldn't open the gate, and he's got a gun. Well, Jerry Lee was not going to go upstairs and meet Elvis with a gun. So we kind of talked to him a little bit and said, geez, that's a nice looking gun. Can I see it? Jerry Lee, yeah, sure, here, take a look at it. Well, we eliminated Jerry Lee's gun, and we got the police to come by, and they took Jerry Lee home. They didn't take him to jail, but they gave him a ride home. And we had a tow truck come and get Jerry Lee's car, tow it off, and we had somebody that came in and fixed the gate real quick so it would open and close.
I think one of you, and it might have been Greg, that ran into Robert Goulet one time, and he asked you, please tell him.
Yeah, I think it was actually Sam, but he said, oh, of course Elvis used to shoot all the televisions when Robert Goulet would sing the song On a Clear Day. Now we don't know why, but he used to shoot up the Palm Springs house, and we've told that story before. I had to patch the wall later, but another story. Sam Thompson, I think, asked Robert Goulet at a party one night. He says, Robert Goulet walked up to him and he said, you used to work for Elvis, right? And Sam said, yes. And he said, why didn't Elvis like me? And of course, Sam lied and said, oh, he was just kidding. That was just a joke. But I was there. Elvis wasn't crazy about his singing.
There were television sets all over that got shot up, trust me, in the United States.
We can sit up here all day and talk, ladies and gentlemen, but if you want to do some questions and answers, we're happy to do that as well. If anybody wants to ask.
You can ask the question, it doesn't mean we're going to answer them.
Yeah. Don't ask Greg, but Dick and I will be happy to say whatever you want to say. Neil, are you here? No, we're by ourselves.
See, we fired him, and he took us serious.
Guess we're all
now
by
he's
ourselves.
really fired.
Okay.
He's gone. Well, by Jove, hey, what?
Do you have a mic, Neil? You can go out and get questions.
Here, you can take mine. You've done everything else wrong today.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, any questions for these guys? Not Dick. Don't ask him.
Don't make us come out there. Especially Dick.
Oh, we got one over here.
Don't go out the door.
He's trying. Over
He
the
stole the
course,
microphone.
over the course of the last 3-4 days, you've turned around and said ever so much about the Colonel. Why is it only now that all these good stories are coming out about the Colonel when since Elvis's passing and obviously the Colonel's passing, nobody's ever said anything about the nice things he's done? Everything's been detrimental. Why is that coming out at this particular point?
Are you saying why is it only now even us are coming out talking about the Colonel?
Yes. Basically, nobody's really said anything about his good nature. Now it's coming out even more as to the good things he's done.
Well, ever since day one, I've told my same story about Colonel. People can believe it or not believe it. I had one lady one time tell me that that's not true. I said, well, ma'am, I was there, but I read it in this book. I said, who wrote the book? And, I said, they weren't there, but people have an opinion, they're not going to change. But I've always, since day one, have done that, and so has Greg, and so Dick. Maybe the right questions haven't been asked, But we have always supported the Colonel and told the truth about him. So I guess maybe more people have not, or more people have told wrong stories, but nonetheless, I've always done it. I think Dick has too.
You know, most of course, the Colonel and his staff are pretty much gone. There's only a couple of us left. And never written books, and Charles is only a few. He's still alive, sort of. And, you know, and if you knew the Colonel, you noticed that he outlived Elvis 20 years, but he never wrote a book when Elvis died. It was hard to do because none of us are saints. And to promote someone for 22 years and then try to defend yourself from issues that maybe don't need to be said was almost impossible for him. So you might notice the Colonel didn't do any interviews, and he never said a bad word on any level about Elvis Presley because he loved him. And he wanted the rest of us not to say anything, and we haven't. So it's complicated. I think I've started kind of going out with a lot of the books and records I have with me today. I have 450 contracts where the Colonel only took a commission, 25%. Now, an urban myth has gone around the world for 20 years that he took 50%, which wasn't even, these guys know that wasn't true, right? Did not happen, but it's become a myth. And many other things. The Colonel did great things for Elvis, and they loved each other, and they might beat each other up a little bit, but they would never let you say anything bad about either one of them. They defend each other to the end, even to the last day. But there was a lot of great things about the Colonel, and once Elvis was gone, you didn't see him promoting or doing books or television or movies. He could have taken in a fortune. He didn't care. It was still Elvis all the time.
After Elvis passed, I can't tell you how many stars went to the Colonel for advice. Michael Jackson went many times. He helped Celine Dion get started. He calls me one day and says, I want you to do a report for a new singer, and I'll pay for it. I'll support the promotion. I said, who is it? And he says, well, just do it. So I call up, put the building on hold. Then he calls back about a week later and says, never mind, she has a whole tour. I said, who was it? He said, her name is Celine Dion. He helped her get started. And I think someone said today that Garth Brooks went to him for, all the stars went to him for advice. Well, if he was such a bad guy, they wouldn't do that. Nipsey Russell, y'all know who Nipsey Russell was? He was a black comedian, a big star back in the day. He wrote, they said, every entertainer should wish that they could wake up in the morning with a Colonel Parker under their bed. And I agree with that. So I'm sorry, next question.
Wait a minute, let me just throw this in. What Charles said about nobody giving out interviews. Elvis didn't, the Colonel didn't. So that business that went on between all of us in there was a very close, tight-knit operation. It wasn't put out to everybody, and the people on the outside that weren't there wished they knew, so they would make up something. And if you look at who has written books, almost all of them were written by people who weren't there. So they get something from somebody else in a book, and they put it in their book, and it just keeps multiplying. The few that were there usually have some reason to try to make themselves better and greater in the whole Elvis world. And that's not true. I mean, I don't particularly care whether you all like me or not. That's not my problem. That's your problem if you don't like me. But I tell it like I saw it. And when you can take three people who live in different areas but know each other,